Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on asset inspection from an office chair. Today, we're going to look at remote operations and really dive into some live demos, both in a substation environment and outside with our Skydio X10. I'm very excited to welcome Dominion Energy to our webinar. My name is Christina Park. I'm the Senior Director of Energy Strategy, and I'd like to hand it over to TF.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm TF Butler. I am the manager of the Unmanned Systems Group here at Dominion Energy, providing service to about 4.5 million customers in 13 different states.
Awesome.
Corey.
Welcome, TF. We also have Corey.
Hey, I'm Corey Hitchcock. I'm the Utility Solutions Specialist at Skydio. I was a lineman in transmission and distribution, helped develop drone use at Southern Company for line inspection and other patrols and nuclear work as well.
Yeah, Corey and I are really excited. We're here at Skydio. Both of us have experience from the utility industry and also working with TF. So we're really excited to share some of these remote operation applications today. So let's move forward here.
All right. Hey, TF, this is it's going to be pretty conversational. I'm going to talk a little bit about when you started working with Skydio back in 2017 and why you started working with Skydio. Why did you pick us?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, just building practical use cases, both old and new, comparing the two together, is it an application where, utilizing a drone was going to fit something the way we previously did something, right? So it's that comparison time frame that you kind of go through that period of learning and doing the comparison part of it. So one of the things we really look, obviously safety is a very core value of most utilities, including ours. How can we keep our employees safer while we're doing a job that does have some risk, right? And then trying to find the tool that did these things at a reasonable cost, to the business, and also, that gets obviously extended out to our customers. And then the other big factor for us was moving away from, products that were non-friendly to the U.S. So we made a decision early on in our progression, approximately 5 years ago, where we only fly U.S. manufactured or friendly foreign country aircraft on our infrastructure. We kind of did that from a couple of different prong approach there. Obviously, cyber concerns were important, as well as making our service to our customers reliable, and know that the data was going to be secured. So there were some of the earlier things that we really kind of targeted when we were looking to partner with Skydio.
Cool. So the hardware progression, how do you think the hardware has progressed over the years, and how are you involved with Skydio in that progression? And then, what new capabilities has your work, your close work with Skydio, unlocked?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the earlier sensor, on aircraft, especially U.S. manufactured aircraft, they were most likely built for another purpose, and we found that. Operating the S2, that actually came the S2 Plus, and then obviously the X2 was our earlier fleet of Skydios. And really, those aircraft weren't really built initially for the utility inspection business. They were built more in a military application. So some of those sensors, since that time, working with Skydio, we've really developed that relationship on what our needs are in the utility sector versus other businesses that may use a drone for their work, right? So I think really going down that, it's really provided us and provided Skydio with some insight on what the need is for our business. And that relationship has really developed some really great products, especially with the X10 coming out, with the dual sensor payloads, with the X series and L series payloads on those aircraft, and then really having the true radiometric capability that we really didn't have with the X2. Obviously S2, didn't necessarily have that for us, but the X2, you compare those side by side today, that anyone who's flown either one of those platforms, it's a night and day difference, right? And it really hasn't taken us that long to get to this point. So I think really for us is just that the business, Skydio understanding what our needs are, and then really trying to come up with a solution to help us solve our problems.
Has the radiometric sensor, that Boson Plus, been a hit with your thermographers?
It has, and I tell you one thing that I'll hopefully get to touch on here today is really our solar side of our house, right? Our renewables, and really what that is really become a game changer, and being able to inspect our solar assets that we have here at Dominion.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about regulatory. Tell us about your work with the Skydio regulatory team. How did that begin, and like, what's the experience been? Would you recommend working with our regulatory team to others, and why?
Yeah, so I think really for us is I think a lot of utilities really struggled with this in the beginning, early 2017, where we're really looking for an aircraft that, BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight, was everybody's goal to fly on utilities, right? Long linear infrastructure. If I could start here and end there, obviously with the FAA, there's definitely hurdles that need to be overcome in order to have those type of operations. Working with the Skydio team, we were able to early on, really the first of its kind, really secure the 42 sites that we have, a waiver with the FAA, working with your legal team, and really coming up with a solution. We are also part of the Beyond program, which was initially the IPP and then became the Beyond program with MAP and Virginia Tech, and really working with your regulatory team and working with that part of it with the FAA, showing that we could do these flights and do them safely, really checked a lot of boxes for us to show what that future could be for beyond visual line of sight. Early on, we put a lot of time and a lot of effort into it, and really the regulatory atmosphere just wasn't supportive of that type of an operation. But again, by working with your team, working with MAP, working with the Beyond program, we've really have overcome. We've got 4 pending waivers right now with the FAA. For other beyond visual line of sight operations and remote, dock operations as well. So, it only continues, and just showing how the aircraft drones can be used in the airspace and used safely.
Awesome. So now I kind of want to talk about, so everybody wants to use drones to capture data, and a lot of times people don't think about the downstream implications of what to do with that data when you capture it. So I guess kind of talk a little bit, if you can, about the importance of downstream data workflows and how that works with Dominion's like data management.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to rapidly go from flight to insight, right? You want to be able to use the information you're collecting from, the aircraft, and be able to do something meaningfully with that data that you've collected. We really looked and it kind of built our basic platform of our program, realizing that data was going to be a big part of what we did, starting with the S2 and then going with the X2, right? Now we're with the X10, better sensors create more data, right? And it's really, too, it's not only about that, it's also about the metadata that's embedded in those images, right? That's really super important to us, too. So being able to have a location where those all can come together and be shared across multiple business units is really important as well. So one of the things that we've looked at in the partnerships with Skydio and with their other partners is being able to work with companies like, Esri, for example, right? Being able to put all that information in one bucket, but it being able to be used across, a bunch of our different business units, like transmission, distribution, right? Power generation. If you're collecting the data, the big buzzword for the century, right, or for this year at least, is AI. Everybody wants AI, right? But if you don't have the images to put into the model, it can't learn. So you really need to have a place already thought out prior to collecting a bunch of data, so it's meaningful data to really get that insight on your infrastructure or the problem you're trying to solve. So really, without having that data in a place that makes sense, it is really critical in training these models and these other programs that can use Skydio data in order to make these models and then be able to give us some actionable results. Is super important. I think that's probably the #1 key when people are building drone programs and getting kicked off the ground. It's not about buying your first drone. It's about getting your policies, procedures, the background and the ability to operate in those spaces, and then being able to put the data somewhere and then you really can move on past that to really do something with the data.
Have you guys found that one drone flight can affect several different lines of business inside the utility, like veg management? You do a line patrol for an inspection, but veg management can also have access to that and other people. So you're getting extra value out of one capture of the data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another one is really to mention too, Corey, is environmental. You know, we're big environmental stewards, right? So having a flight, you know, that may have been for one purpose, but then the design team can use that same data again, and then you really can do alignment with that data on your infrastructure where it is actually, you know, on that piece of land, and then being able to use that to do environmental studies, and then, you know, it could be a security, you know, function as well too, right? So you're really covering a lot of ground with one simple flight. Every AI program potentially can use that data in different ways. So, you know, really the set here, what Skydio brings to the table for us is being able to collect that information. And again, I really stress this is the metadata, you know, the API out that's able to be utilized by these other programs is super important, because if you don't have the right metadata embedded in the imagery, then it's really hard for those other exterior programs to do something with it meaningfully to you.
Cool.
Hey, TF,
I fully
can I ask you? Oh, sorry,
yeah, Christine.
Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, TF, this is really awesome. And I think when I think back of my experience in a utility, I think the nature of the business is that these departments, right? If you're in generation, you don't spend a whole lot of time with people in transmission. Like everybody's kind of got their function. A lot of these business units are very siloed. But I think it's really interesting what you're saying about the data and being able to share that across business units and across different use cases. So can you share a little bit about how your department really kind of touches all these different business units and how you support them with this data?
Yeah, so really for us in our build out of our program here at Dominion is we're under the services umbrella. So we actually supply and provide service to all of our business units. Some utilities aren't you know structured that way, but the unique part of our group is we're actually able to do work for every one of our businesses. So it really gives us the ability to collect the data and then basically share that data, you know, across our businesses. You know, in some situations where, say, for example, at some company, maybe your electric transmission couldn't share with distribution, right? But if our group as services is collecting that information, we can share that amongst other groups in our business, right? So you're not crossing lines of budgetary and other things, right? So it really streamlines this process of getting the data where it needs to get funneled to. You know, I mentioned Esri, you know, as a platform that we use here at Dominion, but if we were able to put all that data and all those flights in one location, depending on who had the ability to look at that data, you know, had authorization to look at that data, then it could already have been collected for you without having to do repeated flights in order to get the same information. So that's a really, you know, cost saving across the whole entire enterprise for us, is being able to do that.
That's awesome. And if we think about the utility workflow with all the inspections that need to happen and the information that you're trying to collect, could you talk a little bit? You said that Esri, a lot of utilities use Esri. I think it's pretty safe to say. And I think there are platforms that are just common in the utility space, as well as post-processing AI that tends to happen. Could you talk a little bit about the business value of being able to integrate easily to get your data from one platform to another, so that at the end of the day, you can get from flight to insight?
Yeah, I mean, for us is working with vendors, right? You know, we talk to vendors, and then, you know, that connection could be made with Skydio, right? And then you all have the ability to reach out to some of these same vendors, these same companies, right? And the relationship there is so important because of the data that's needed. Again, I talk about metadata, and I don't want to minimize that, but it's so important that all of those pieces and parts work together correctly, right? And the interpretation there is so important for us, having that relationship with our vendors that are currently could be a vendor, you know, for the company, but then being able to bring in what Skydio is able to provide on the API out. That's a key factor in bringing all of this data together. There's not one platform that does everything. There's not one program that does everything. And we all realize that in the utility industry. There's not a one-stop, shop, item that we can pull out of our pocket, launch it, and get everything back, right? So there's a lot of pieces and parts that need to come together that are so critical and important to our business.
Awesome, thanks.
So TF, Dominion's mission is to provide the reliable, affordable, and increasingly clean energy that powers your customers every day. How does the use of drones for inspection help you deliver that safe, reliable, and affordable electricity to the community?
I mean, if you look at some of the traditional ways, and not only actually, I'm gonna stand up real quick to dark room. Sorry about that. One of the things for us is reliability, right? Reliability of our grid. Being able to go out and provide that reliability means that certain things have to be inspected continuously, right? And to be able to do that affordably, not only in electric transmission or distribution, for example, but in power generation, for example. In order to do certain inspections, it could mean erecting a lot of scaffolding to reach a certain location, right? If we're able to do that with a drone and we have, our pilot standing on the ground, we're able to do that very affordably. We're able to do that reliably and repeatedly using the aircraft that we're using, right? And then it's increasingly clean. I don't have to potentially have a bunch of man hours where people are bringing trucks in and equipment in order to erect the scaffolding. Maybe it's a helicopter operation. Drones, we're not going to, go one for one for a helicopter, but a lot of inspections are done by helicopter because there's no other means of doing it. If we can do that with a drone and save that cost of that inspection from that, it's also, there's another inherent risk there, right? You have, two pilots in an aircraft that's flying, over assets, flying in the line environment is dangerous work. But if we don't have to do that, then we're really increasing our efficiency. We're increasing the reliability of our grid. It's definitely affordable, and the increasingly clean. I think that goes without saying. When you're using a drone to do that work, that's saving and working towards our zero emission to 2050 for the company. So I think that's what we want to do with our customers every day. I think drones are really a good price point when you look at what they're able to provide. And I think, there's definitely a cost saving there. I mean, obviously for us doing it internally, there's a cost saving because, we're not having to bring a third party example, into our system too. There's no change orders, things like that. So there is definitely, with the 10-man group that I have, here at Dominion, we're able to save a lot of costs in that aspect as well.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about starting a drone program. It seems to be a popular topic in the industry. In the beginning, what was the goal of the drone program?
So for us, was really in the beginning of our program was trying to put the guardrails in place. We had drones were becoming a thing. We were having individuals bring their personal drone from home and flying it on our infrastructure, and our executive leadership said, yeah, we really need to put some guidelines around how we're utilizing unmanned systems, and realizing that this is probably the future of a lot of inspection, here at Dominion. And it's really trying to get that basic foundation down, right? Building the program, making policy, making, procedure manuals, and following what, the FAA, ultimately has control of when it comes to operating, in that environment as a commercial operator. So that was really the things that really came about. Is the risk worth having an employee bring their own personal drone to work? And there was really not an appetite for the risk. So really standing up the program really started there. The realization early on, it even went before the 2017 timeframe for us at Dominion, is really how do we do this the right way, get off on the right foot, and then really progress our program past that. So, I think that was really how we started. leadership buy-in. We started the program and the process, like I said in the beginning, where we were comparing apples to apples. We're like, okay, we're going to do a volumetric study at one of our coal, fire power plants. It's a 3-day process roughly. We have a lot of downtime there where we're not able to push the pile, where we would be able to be bringing a drone in and collecting thousands more points and really getting that more accurate, right? So we were able to show, the traditional way. We're not taking that off the table yet, but we're actually going to show how we can do this with the unmanned systems and a drone, right? So we brought the Skydio in, we did a 15-minute flight, and we were more accurate than a 3-day study because of the amount of data we were collecting. So I think that really leadership was looking at, cost, dollar to dollar, and it really made sense to like, maybe we should get into this a little bit more than what we are, which then led to like the budget. How do you get the money to stand up a program? And from our standpoint, we didn't go out and buy 20 drones, right? We bought a couple of drones to be able to prove the value of what they would bring to the table. Again, the safety part of it, how do you put a number on safety? That's a real important key factor here too, where, I think when you compare a life to a drone, there's really no comparison, right? We'll all agree there. But if I can show that I can do this for half the price that I could do it before, or maybe I don't have to erect scaffolding in an area, I may have to, because I may need to do a repair that I identified with a drone. So you really, can't take that off the table, but really you started showing this really big cost efficiency of using unmanned systems. Our program also does, we're air, land, and sea. We do have submersibles as well. And we do, a lot of confined space as well too with our drones too. But that's just how the programs evolved from, early workflows, how we were using the technology, doing things that had never been done before. We had a gravel pile at a dam, and we really never knew what the volumetric calculation was of what was actually sitting there. These are things we were able to do really quickly and provided value. And really for us, it's the value to the business that we're supporting here at Dominion. For us, we really have to show what that value is. And then, maybe it is, 12 drone in the boxes. Maybe it's one initially, and maybe then we branch out from there, right? So I think all of this is scalable. Co-ops, other utilities that are trying to get into this, really the biggest thing, reach out to me. But the basic foundation is so important as you really go on this journey. Again, I would say second is data storage is another one. But that's really kind of how our program really kind of evolved to where we are today. Remote operations, drone in the box, which was kind of a dream back in 2017. Really wasn't a lot of talk, and look where we are today.
Cool. Thanks for that. Let's talk about the program strategy and your rollout strategy. Like how, or I guess, have you realized new problems that you can solve that didn't occur initially, or things that weren't that you didn't think about? And then how has the use of drones evolved over time? Like, has it become, initially it was like a good thing to have in my world, or like when I was at the Southern, it was like a good thing to have, but then it became part of the workflow. Is that kind of the same experience you've had at Dominion?
Yeah, I think, once you get the drone in your hand and then you realize what other things you can do with that platform that you really didn't realize the use case initially. I think we found that on, I talked about environmental a little while ago. We're trying to do our environmental audits, really didn't realize that there really is a big application there. We're flying over, projects were under construction, for example, and then, wow, well, we could really use that data to really base our environmental audit inspections on, right? And so we're really, again, using that same data over for another group that really has an interest in looking at that from a different vantage point. I think traditionally we started off, using cell phones to take pictures of issues, potentially on an electric transmission or a distribution line. Well, you really weren't at the level of the problem. You were on the ground taking a picture up, right? And now to be able to be there by that asset that has the issue and being able to document that, it really changes your perspective on what you're really looking at. I say there's a lot of polls probably in the utility space that we're really good inspected about probably 10 or 11 feet off the ground because somebody was just standing there looking at it, right? But really, what was really going on above that part of it, right? So I think we really changed a lot of mindsets when you really are able to look at that from the top down or at the actual level of the, the conductors or the components on that pole. We're looking at that woodpecker hole, how deep is it? When you're able to get that close and actually look at those stuff, really helps with your O&M process. Does that pole need to be replaced today? Can it wait till tomorrow? Same thing in our power gen facilities as well. We're able to do inspections without taking it out of service or reducing the amount of current that's flowing through things by utilizing this technology. Really, allows that to continue to operate as it needs to, unless we see something that says else, that we need to do something to that asset. So I think really keeping everything up and running versus having to shut things down, that really makes sense, when you're looking at, the customers that we serve.
Awesome. So what problems and applications are you solving today with drones?
So I think really, being a regulated industry, here at Dominion, being able to meet the inspection requirements, right? They're set out by the regulators. I think that's a really a big one, and it's a key important one too. Being able to get that done and potentially get more done than what has been asked of us as well, right? So you're able to cover more, for a utility, a large utility, to go out and inspect every line that you have, every pole that you have on your infrastructure, in a year or a month that's just not going to happen. But to be able to do that in a more, side-by-side comparison, right? We talk about AI, and we're able to put those same images, the orientation is the same, right? So if we're looking at this same stretch of line today, and then we look back at it in a year, that's where change detection and AI really comes to really starting to bear a lot of fruits for us, right? So I think that's a really big key thing for us, not only in the distribution transmission side, but also, in our power generation facilities as well. So I think, places that we weren't able to see normally, in very complex environments, with the obstacle avoidance that we're able to use with Skydio and actually get into those areas. The inspection process itself is more thorough. You can only see so much from the ground, as I indicated before, and being able to actually get really close to that asset and really inspect it very closely is super important and super helpful.
Cool. So you guys have been flying Skydio drones for 7+ years, and with the sensors that the X10 offers and remote inspection via dock, what are you guys able to do now with these new capabilities?
Well, I think one of the exciting parts of what we're looking at, is the potential use. When the X10 is actually out and in a dock, right? We're able to see some of those applications now, with the two lens packages that are on the aircraft currently. I think that's really the exciting part for us, to be able to see where this is going to be able to give us, being able to look at things from further distance, or be able to look at things, from a dual sensor payload package, right? So we're looking at with a true radiometric and being able to look at it, getting kind of the same field of view, the L series lens. I think that's really going to be a benefit for us, not only in the inspection, but in the security aspect as well. So, having a drone in a box live at a secure facility where we need to do routine, flights to make sure that security perimeter is intact, being able to have that type of technology live there at a site, whether it's a substation, or a facility, and be able to do repeated flights, looking at key components every single time, is that apples to apples comparison. Really comes down to change. Is that gate open or is that gate closed? The same thing goes for our solar renewable fleet too. Do we have ring outage? Do we have combiner box issues? Whatever it may be, we're able to look at that with that data, with a platform living there on site, and repeatedly be able to do, launch that drone and be able to look at that real time, or being able to look at it, processed through AI data, and then being able to look at that from that aspect as well, from the change aspect.
Cool. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and switch over to a demo here. We've got we're going to do a couple demos, and what we're going to do is involve a little bit of audience participation here. So if you take your mobile device and you scan that QR code that's there on the screen, that's going to be a ready link, and what that ready link is going to do is allow you to see a high quality stream from the inspection that I'm going to do on the like on the web app that we're kind of presenting through. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our cloud interface. All right. So what you see here is an example of what you would see if you had a fleet of drones. So you'd see like your dock drones in the left side of the screen. This facility is actually in Hayward, California, at our dock testing facility, and it's indoors. So it's a GPS denied environment, and we're going to operate this Midway 119. Actually, we're going to go ahead and switch over to our outdoor drone. I didn't realize we had that going first. So we're going to go ahead and switch to that. So we've got a different link. So what you see here is we've got Rodney out flying a transmission structure in Hayward, or correction, in San Mateo. And Rodney, go ahead and stop flying right there. I just want to show everybody that this is in real time. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sharing the wrong tab. There we go. All right, Rodney, go ahead and let's look at the top of that pole. Let's see what the top of that pole condition looks like. There you go. If you could move in, zoom in a little bit on it, if you can. All right, cool. So we can see we've got a little bit of growth there at the top, like fungus growth at the top of the pole. Might need a pole cap installed there. The payload that we're flying with here is our L gimbal, the VT300L gimbal. It has a 1-inch, 50 megapixel wide sensor. That's what we're looking through here. Rodney, if you could back out and see if we can see any insulator ratings on any of the those insulators that are there at the top. All right. TF, what do you see there? What do you think we should look at?
How about the identification there on the pole? I think right there to the left there, Corey.
Yeah, can we look at that ID on the left on the pole there? Do you have like an ID tag that you can see, Rodney? All right. Rodney, can you descend and see if we can see like the switch number there? Got some fault indicators there that we can see, and we've got our switch number there on the handle. TF, how would you use this capability here, where you have a person in the field and you're streaming the data back? Like, how would you use that?
Yes, I think, really the thing that comes to mind, like the storm that we're in right now, Debbie that came up the coast, is being able to actually get that in to our command center, right? Our central command center, to be able to see real live what's going on out in the field, right? A situation like this, there was for example, if we had, some insulators there that potentially been cracked or the line had operated at some point during the night, right? Being able to go up there and look at those insulators, be able to tell actually how that line operated or why it potentially operated, could be in a bird, whatever, lightning strike, right? Being able to show that, I think, really comes into the SCADA system too, when you're actually really trying to show some switching and some issues that potentially could be there. Having an engineer that's on the ground somewhere else other than the location you're at, you can actually give them some real flavor of what is happening real time. The old saying that a picture's worth 1,000 words really applies here too. For them to actually be able to see that in real time and make a actionable decision, potentially on a replacement. It really comes into play too when you're looking at transformers too, that are pole mounted. If there's an issue with them, we're just looking at the health of those as well. With the Skydio being able to look up from the bottom, not only straight ahead or looking up, but being able to get underneath of that and actually look up is super critical there too. Looking at Carter keys to see if they've backed out or not. We're looking at several of them there on that bell. Being able to actually really look close, versus, if this environment was marshy underneath there, bringing mats in to bring actually a vehicle in there or have somebody climb the structure really wouldn't make sense. To being able to use the drone to be able to get in this position to be able to see these Carter keys in this example, super important to that inspection process.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop this stream. I appreciate that, Rodney. So now I've got our cloud or the dock warehouse back up. I'm going to go back and share that. And this is going to work with that QR code that we shared earlier. So you'll be able to see this feed. All right, so we're loading our remote flight deck. We've already shown the fleet that you would see. We are opening our dock, and you can see from the bottom right, we've got our dock cameras. This is the view that that you would use to inspect or see what's going on out in front of your dock. We've got the aircraft set up, and it's running through its built-in self-checks, and we're ready for flight. So I'm going to tap the launch button and then switch back to the dock view, and we'll be able to see the drone launch. So I'm tapping launch, and you'll see the drone take off here. And once the drone takes off, it's going to do a 360 rotation. And what that's doing is syncing up the vision collision avoidance with the IMU on board, so the flight computer on board. And what we have here, we've gotten a call to this substation that there's a high temp alarm, and we need to check and see, like, is the high temp alarm real? Is it a sensing issue, and do we need a regular test engineer, or do we need a full substation crew to deal with this problem? So what we're going to do is we're going to start, and we're going to see that there's a big gaping hole in the fence. So we probably should look at that. But we're going to fly over to the back side of the station using our point-to-click feature. So this point-to-click feature is pretty neat. You can click in space, and you'll see the AR or augmented reality kind of a ring show up, and the drone will fly to that ring. And it's simple. I'm not using really any controls other than looking with my mouse and then pointing to click. So I'm going to click towards the back side of this power transformer here, and I see the fans aren't running. Maybe they should be. With a high temp alarm, you would expect them to be. We can move around to the front side of the tank. All right, so I popped around to the front side, and I know I've got some gauges here on the left. We've got an oil level gauge and a windings temperature gauge that we're going to try to look at. All right, so we've got our windings temperature gauge there on the bottom right, and we can see at that windings temperature gauge that it's at the upper limit of the contacts. So the fans should be running, and we can see the fans aren't running. So then we're going to go over here and check our the expansion tank, and we see that our expansion tank's low. We've got a low oil level here. So we know that it's not a relaying or sensor issue. So we're going to need a whole substation crew. So rather than waste the time of a test engineer going out there, we can go ahead and say, yeah, we're going to need a crew to make some repairs to this transformer, and potentially start coming up with alternate switching options in case this transformer was to fail, or that we might need to get some load off of it. And as we continue to do our inspection here, we see that we've got kind of a damaged, our middle low side bushings a little damaged there. And we found our friendly wildlife that likes to cause damage to power systems. Now, something else that's pretty cool about dock operation when we're doing these inspections is the ability for the drone to kind of analyze and determine its best way home. I'm going to take the drone back here into our warehouse, and I'm going to kind of get the drone in what I like to call an impossible kind of return to home situation. So we're going to move through this door, and we're going to fly back here to the back of this warehouse. Now, I really think there's some, these interior use cases exist inside the utilities, like whether it's generation or whether it's
link loss. Link loss.
All right, so we had a little
link
Wi-Fi
loss.
issue.
Link
I'm going to go ahead and hit return to home. But we were back in that warehouse, and the drone now is determining its best way home. So it knew the safe way that it needed to fly, or the safe way that it flew to do the inspection, and it's kind of backtracking, but it's not an exact backtrack. The drone's kind of extrapolating its best route. Once it locates the dock, it's going to use that large logo on the top of the dock to do gross positioning. It's going to identify the dock address. So that 01 there is the dock address. You could have multiple docks in one location. So it's identified 01 as its home. And now it's going to descend and then use the April tag that's on the arm, which the drone has identified for fine positioning. And you can see the drone is now over the landing cup, and it's going to land in there. Now, once the drone lands, it's going to be returned to the inside of the dock. It's going to begin to charge and upload that data to the Skydio cloud, where the integrations with our partners can be used to push that data wherever you need it. And so we'll see the drone return. And once it returns, there it goes. So that behavior you saw was the drone kind of making sure that the battery was aligned with the charging pins and for the data upload and the charging to happen. All right, so that mission's happened. With that that ready link that we shared, you could share that across your organization, and be able. You can also expire that link. So if the link is the link's been compromised or shared with someone maybe it shouldn't have been, you can disable that link and reshare it with you know, the exact people that you want to share it with. You can also set an expiration on there so that once the link is shared, it's only good for a certain amount of time, and then it expires and is no good anymore. So once you complete the flight, that data goes into the Skydio cloud. So you can see here historic flights that we've done. You can replay that data and analyze it. Another cool thing with Doc that you can do is plan missions. Those missions can be autonomous for different protection areas inside the station, or different protection schemes. Whether it's a bus differential scheme, you could plan an inspection mission for that. High side protection, you can plan a mission for that, or the actual bank differential, you can plan a whole mission for that. So as you would get the alerts that something has happened, you can identify that flight plan that you have and then operate it or execute it, and then it would go and capture the data for all the previously defined inspection points, and then return that data to you for analysis. Something else the Skydio cloud allows program managers to do is to kind of manage their fleet, see how many flights they've had. So this is from July the 7th to August the 7th. In 1 month, we've had 24 flights, about 2.3 hours of flight time on this aircraft. And then you can see that activity by aircraft. You can see that activity by pilot. So you can see how many people have flown, you know, which aircraft on your system. You can also get alerts. If you had something happen to the vehicle, or the vehicle health was starting to degrade, you would get an alert there. And then you can see the number of flights, and then you can view the flights. So we'll see, we got the flight that just happened. This is a 3D kind of example of where the drone moved around in space. And this is all done GPS denied, with the vision collision avoidance system kind of tracking its 3D environment. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing there, and we've got a couple more questions if we could get back to the presentation.
Yeah, Corey, TF, really appreciate you showing this live demo. So if anyone else has any questions, if you could please put them in the chat, and we'll go through as many as we can. So I'm going to look through these. So we have a question here. What functions or inspections were your lowest hanging fruit, and how did you determine that? TF, I think this one's for you.
Yeah, a lot of those too. You know, it's not only inspections. It's like a lot of facilities, for example, really didn't have. They just wanted updated photos of their facilities for planning purposes. You know, for outage. You know, where they were going to park equipment during an outage, or hey, we just wanted an updated map because we haven't had one in 15 years. So I think, you know, it's not only inspection, it's just there's other things too that you could do with a drone that are just so, you know, eye-opening to, you know, the personnel at that station too, and administration too, right? We're trying to plan to do modifications to a facility, and being able to do that, right? So really, it doesn't necessarily have to be an inspection, but for inspections for us, it really for the biggest part for us is actually doing, you know, the inspection on lines. You know, I mentioned, you know, a line operating before too, right? Being able to go out there firsthand and being able to determine what happened, why it did, right? Why it operated. You know, we have teams that climb routinely to climb on structures to inspect those. You know, when you can do some of that inspection with a drone versus having someone actually climb on that structure. We talked about this before, it's the safety part of it. But I really think, you know, a lot of it too is even we do a lot of 2D mapping. You know, our group route right now currently, if you know any surveyors out there in the world that are also drone pilots, we will be hiring here shortly because there was a need in our business unit to do that on our construction, especially on solar. As many utilities, you know, keep building out their footprint on renewables. You know, obviously solar, you know, a couple thousand acres of land. You need to do orthomosaics of that property to build those maps, right? The 2D maps, and being able to actually drill in and be able to give some good, you know, feedback to those construction groups too. Helping our designers when it comes to realigning a stretch of line, being able to determine what's currently out there hanging and then what needs to be or what can be reclaimed. I think that's another one. And let's just talk about storm response. I mean, we're in the middle of that type of weather right now. South Carolina is part of our service territory. When you really start looking at that, being able just to go out there and get eyes on, areas, that have been damaged by storms and being able to get those things in the hands of the people that need to make the plans. It could be the overnight crew that's getting ready to make, packet assignments for the next morning to get them out there to get work done, or tree trimming crews. There's another real valuable. So I think once you really, get a platform and you start doing the inspections, you really start realizing what the value is of that, and then how it really can fit and benefit the business need.
That's awesome. And along those lines, we have another question. You've identified some really amazing use cases. So when justifying your program costs to your management, how do you justify that cost? So were significant O&M savings identified, or was it mostly justified as a reliability or operation improvement initiative?
I think that's two-pronged, Christina. I think, when we really look at, they go hand in hand, right? So if we're able to go do something that we would have to bring in an external party to, into our company to do work for us, if we're able to do that at a reasonable cost, we have full-time pilots that are getting a full-time salary, right? There's no upcharge. There's no change order. There's no, we can be there same day service, right? When you're getting that return, every plant manager, every line operator, they're important, right? And they need to get the information they need in a timely fashion. So being able to do that, super important. And I think really from the cost savings aspect, when you look at some of the equipment that we purchase, if you use it 4 times, basically, if you were having a contract company come and do that work, you've basically paid for it. So why not own it and use it, 100, 200, 300 times or more, over a period of 3 or 4 years, your return on the investment is really there. And again, being able to respond to these businesses in a timely fashion is really important. I just had one of my pilots just come in the room, was out doing, something that just came up at one of our facilities. Being able to go out and do that, real time, really shows a value and really shows that impact, where we're really supporting our business.
Yeah, thanks for that. That gives a lot of color to that. And I know that getting funding is always difficult, and we are in budget season. There are a couple questions. I'm going to consolidate them a little bit about the responsibilities between Dominion employees and Skydio in order to actually implement. So did Dominion come up with your own autonomous routes, or was Skydio assisting with that along with partnerships like Esri?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all three, honestly. I think, when we're looking at, the best angle to get a shot, I know we're doing the live demo there of some infrastructure, right? Like, how many pictures or how many images do you need of a pole in order to make good decisions? Is it for, all 4 sides and maybe a top down? So I think that really that depends on what you're trying to do with the information. But if you don't build the foundation to get that information, again, the AI program, once you teach it and model it, if you keep doing those same repeated things, then the value and the accuracy of that model just becomes that more, accurate, right? So I think really it's a combination of everything. I mean, we do a lot of things because of our cyber requirements on-prem versus having it housed in the cloud. That's a little bit different than some utilities, but again, it can be done. Skydio is not, holding the API where we can't get it to use it on programs internally to our business. So we can bring that data in and integrate it within our own in-house programs or external partners, that Skydio has worked with as well. So it really kind of builds that really, I talked about before, there's really no total solution, but, the more and more we work towards these accomplishments with Esri and some of the other companies that we've worked with, and Skydio has worked with as well, I think we really get closer to that more well-rounded platform or potential.
Awesome. We are kind of a little bit over time, but there's one more question I'd like to ask. So Somebody asked, do your drone capture transmission inspections integrate into a common system with your traditional methods of inspection, such as helicopter or ground patrol?
Yes, that's where that Esri piece comes in. Can't talk a lot about that, but that is definitely something that we are currently working, with Skydio and Esri on, trying to align those models and that information and data. More to come on that. I know even previously this week last week we had some conversation, that we continue to work towards that. So I think, every utility has a lot of the same issues or problems they're trying to solve. The unique part about the utilities is we're really not in competition with each other. So it really, that broader think tank, UTC conference that we hosted here a couple of weeks ago as well, everybody coming together at the table, you'll find that a lot of the issues and a lot of the things that we're trying to solve problem-wise are, not a Dominion issue alone. I think the other utilities are facing those same things. So it's really the time now, in my opinion, to really come together and really socialize these ideas. And at the end of this process, there's really some great ideas, and they all really come together and align. That it really benefits everyone.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time. I think before we sign off, I just wanted to make notice of a link that should be in the chat. So if you're interested, Skydio is having a user conference at the end of September, and you can register via the link. So there will be a virtual live stream of our keynote, a customer showcase, including Kathy Hidalgo from Southern California Edison will be on stage with me, and we'll talk about some of the common problems utilities face and how she's expanding her drone program over at Southern California Edison, as well as breakout sessions of some really key topics, some of which TF touched on today. So we would love if you could join us. We're going to talk about our latest products and developments and innovation. And there will definitely be an emphasis on the utility space. So please sign up and join us. And thanks for joining us today. Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.